Support for Radio Friends comes from IT Como, offering computer and IT services for small businesses and residential clients. IT Como can set up remote work-at-home solutions and data security and backup systems and upgrade your company email to more modern platforms. IT Como can also help you get the most from your technology at home. Learn more at itcomo.com. Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends on Friday, October the 14th. We've got a couple of friends of mine, Moms Demand Action, and they do demand action. These two ladies, Kristin Bowen and Catey Terry. Pleasure to have both of you here. You wanted to talk, besides about Moms Demand Action, you wanted to talk about something else. This October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to join you today, Paul, to just sort of help raise awareness about this important issue. It really is a crisis for us across the country and here in Missouri in particular, that gun-related domestic violence is a deadly crisis that we need to address. So how do you address that?
Well, first, let me just back up and tell you that sadly 70 women are killed every month in this country in domestic violence incidents, or intimate partner violence is another way we refer to it. And if there's a gun in the home, the woman is 5 times more likely to die than if there's no weapon in the house. So
you're saying 70 women in this country die every month with domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Now, is this with a gun?
Mm-hmm.
And another way to think about it, in this country right now, there's about almost 1 million women who've either been shot or been threatened with a firearm, and then there are millions more who've been threatened with a firearm. So this is an issue that affects so many of us. And so we want to raise awareness about the problem and talk about the ways that we can work to fight domestic violence, to disarm domestic abusers. These are people who are dangerous and should not have access to firearms. And there are some common sense things that we can advocate for. So we wanted to talk today about some of those things.
Okay, what are they?
So first of all, we need to see that our lawmakers are working to enact laws that keep guns out of the hand of dangerous abusers. And here in Missouri, we do not currently have a law that prevents violent domestic abusers from having firearms. But there are other things that can be done, including on the federal level, closing the Charleston Loophole, which makes it possible for people to buy a gun even if the background check is taking longer than a few days and the sale goes through. Your viewers may have heard of the Charleston Loophole.
Wait, back up here.
Yep.
So you're saying if the background check is taking longer than a few days
Yep.
to go through,
3 days.
you can legally still buy a gun, they can still purchase a gun if they're still waiting for the background check because the background check is taking too long?
That's right.
And usually the background check taking that long indicates there's something wrong, but a person buying a weapon has a right to have access to that weapon within 3 days. And that's what happened in Charleston in the Mother Emanuel Church
Right.
shooting. That shooter should not have had a gun, but the background check too long, and he was allowed to purchase it.
Unfortunately, and we also know that background checks that relate to domestic abuse convictions take the longest. So sometimes, this becomes an even greater problem when we're talking about domestic abusers buying a firearm because their background checks take longer. So that's an issue on the federal level that our federal law legislators can take care of. But here in Missouri,
that seems only like common sense.
Well,
it seems like only common sense because if you were applying for a job and they were running a background check on you, you're not going to get hired for that job until the background check is complete.
That's right.
So it would only make sense that you cannot buy a firearm until the background check is complete.
Correct.
And again, I think we need to reemphasize that Moms Demand Action is you're not trying to take guns away from everybody. That's not what your goal is. It's just responsibility with guns.
Well, common sense is in our name. We're Moms Demand Action for common sense.
Well, I think it's really important that we see that this is common sense, and we need to encourage our lawmakers. We need to vote for lawmakers who will work to make these things happen. For too long, they've just sat on their hands and done nothing. And it's time for us to say, okay, let's pay attention. There are some common sense things that can be done in Jefferson City and in Washington.
Are there enough people? Now you got to get the people behind it.
Yes.
Are there enough citizens that really care about this to make it happen?
Well, for example, the Violence Against Women Act, which is a piece of federal legislation that was passed in the House earlier this year, is waiting for a vote in the Senate. And when there have been surveys done, 90% of Americans support the Violence Against Women Act. It's not controversial. It's become partisan, and that's not okay. So we want to raise awareness that this is something that, our lawmakers need to hear from us on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that calling the lawmaker
Yes.
makes a difference?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It makes a difference, even if it's a partisan issue. They will change if enough people call. One or two calls won't do it. It has to be an enormous number of people calling.
Sure.
It does, and we meet with legislators often to hear what's on their minds, and we do some work in Jefferson City, and they all say that calling makes a difference. You call and say you're a registered voter in their district, and then tell them how you feel about an issue, and they all say that they keep track of the calls at least. We could never guarantee they change their votes, but
right. But
we need to keep
it's so
plugging
important.
away.
We have to share our stories, and so we really coach our supporters. We talked at our meetings about how we make these calls, how we make our voices heard. We have survivors who do this work with us, people
Right.
who've experienced domestic violence. Having those voices heard in Jefferson City is just vital.
Right. And when you make the call, it's important to remain polite.
Absolutely.
To be polite. You don't yell at the person that's answering the phone, because they're there, they're doing their job, they're taking it down. Their secretaries or assistants, they're not making the laws. So be polite to them. And I've noticed whenever I call, they're always polite to me, no matter which office you're calling. They're all polite on the phone.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
We're all just trying to make Missouri a better, safer place for our families to live. So we want to make sure people know about this month and the importance of this month, but we also want to encourage people to join us, because this is what we do, is help people learn how to make their voices heard. So we're back to in-person meetings. We just had our October meeting. We'll be meeting again in November in person here in Columbia. And we're excited to return to the homecoming parade this October.
If you're looking for a fun thing to do with
Yes.
Moms Demand Action, we march in the Mizzou homecoming parade, which is often very early in the morning. But we have a group walking. We toss candy to the spectators. We get announced as we pass the platform, and it's a fun way to help us spread the word in Columbia, Missouri.
So you can look for Moms Demand Action in the homecoming parade.
You can find us on our website, momsdemandaction.org, and find all of our events listed there.
Okay. Ladies, I thank you so much for coming out, visiting with us today. I wish you continued success with what you are doing and what you're trying to do. Again, you're not trying to take guns away from people. Yeah, I mean, I grew up, my father had guns, but just being responsible with them. We're out of time. Bye-bye.